The room froze. A CEO, dressed in power and pride, raised his hand against his pregnant wife. Gasps filled the air, yet no one moved. No one, except a quiet man in a stained chef's apron. What he did next silenced the powerful, and left the world stunned. The boardroom had been designed to intimidate. Tall glass walls reflected the city skyline, and the polished mahogany table gleamed under the weight of wealth and authority. Every chair was filled with men and women in sharp suits, their faces stiff with obedience. And at the head of the table sat the CEO, an empire builder, a man accustomed to command. His wife, visibly pregnant, stood quietly at his side, her hands folded against her stomach as if protecting the fragile life within. She whispered something, soft, almost apologetic. But it was enough to ignite his anger. His hand lashed out, striking her cheek with a violence that shattered the air. For a moment, the room stood still. No one dared breathe. Every executive lowered their gaze, their silence screaming complicity. They had seen this before, though never so openly. Fear kept their voices locked, and ambition kept their eyes averted. But at the far end of the room, where servants were meant to be invisible, stood a man who was neither rich nor powerful. He wore a simple white chef's jacket, the cuffs stained with broth from the kitchen. His skin glistened with the sheen of hard labor, his hands rough from years of work. His name was Samuel, though few bothered to remember it. To them, he was only the chef. Yet Samuel's eyes did not look away. His gaze locked onto the injustice before him, and something deeper stirred within him, a weight of memories, of promises made long ago. Years earlier, Samuel had worn a different uniform, a soldier's fatigues. He had served in foreign lands, where heat clung to the skin, and the air reeked of smoke and blood. He had carried brothers through fire, buried friends in foreign soil, and learned that silence could speak louder than any shout. When the war ended, he returned home scarred, but whole, searching for peace in the rhythm of cooking. Yet his soldier's heart never left him. Now, watching the CEO strike a woman who carried life itself within her, Samuel felt that soldier awaken once more. He remembered the vow he had made at a comrade's grave: "Never again will I stand silent in the face of cruelty." The executives remained frozen, their pens still hovering over papers. The wife's eyes watered, her lips trembling as she steadied herself. And the CEO, confident, untouchable, straightened his tie as if nothing had happened. He looked around, daring anyone to challenge him. None did. He stepped forward, his movements calm and deliberate. The sound of his shoes against the marble floor echoed louder than any voice. The room shifted, all eyes turning to the man they had overlooked. He stood across the table from the CEO, his posture straight, his silence heavy with judgment. The CEO's eyes narrowed. "This doesn't concern you," his gaze seemed to say. But Samuel did not flinch. His calm presence was its own defiance. And then, without words, Samuel placed his chef's knife on the polished table, not as a threat, but as a symbol. The blade gleamed under the lights, reflecting every fearful face around it. He folded his arms across his chest and looked directly at the wife, offering a nod so small yet so powerful that she drew courage from it. It was in that silence that the room began to break. One executive shifted uncomfortably, then another. Soon, a murmur spread, voices finding strength in the presence of one unshakable man. A woman at the table stood, her voice trembling but clear: "This is not right." Others followed, one by one, until the air filled with defiance. The CEO's face drained of color. His power, once absolute, crumbled in the face of a truth he could no longer command. His wife stepped back from him, closer to Samuel, shielded by the courage he had inspired. And then came the words that would be remembered long after that day. Samuel's voice, deep and steady, broke the silence. Silence protects the powerful. But courage protects the innocent. The room erupted, not in noise but in unity. Executives, who had once cowered now stood together, their collective presence stripping the CEO of the fear he had used to rule. Security arrived, not for Samuel, but for the man who thought himself untouchable. As the CEO was escorted away, his empire crumbling behind him, Samuel remained still. He did not seek praise, nor recognition. He simply retrieved his knife, wiped it clean, and returned to the kitchen. The wife, tears streaming down her face, whispered gratitude. But Samuel only nodded, the quiet strength in his eyes saying what words never could. Outside, the city moved on, unaware that within those glass walls, a tyrant had fallen, not by force, but by the silent honor of one overlooked man. True strength, Samuel once told a fellow soldier, is not in how loud you shout, but in how long you stand. That truth lived in him still. Respect cannot be bought with money, nor held with fear. It is earned in the silence of those who refuse to turn away from injustice. Samuel was not a CEO, nor a man of wealth, but his courage shook an empire. What about you? Would you have spoken up, or stayed silent? Tell us in the comments where you are watching from, and what this story means to you. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories of courage, dignity, and unseen heroes.